More than $500,000 in cash was stashed in a couch at his ranch and then stolen. Outgoing US President Joe Biden visits Angola, fulfilling a promise made in late 2022 to visit sub-Saharan Africa. It is also Biden's first trip to the continent since becoming president. And designers give new life to second-hand clothing as Ghana's capital drowns in fast fashion waste. That's this week on World of Africa. At these times on WION, World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION, World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post with me, Hem Kaur Saroya. Lots lined up for you on the show today. The situation is tense in Syria. It's slowly starting to mirror Syria's pre-2020 nightmare. The Syrian rebels advancing against government forces have captured the largest city, Aleppo, even as Syria's ally, Russia, test-fired hypersonic missiles near the coast of Syria. Earlier this week, the Russian army claimed launching hypersonic missiles during naval and air force drills in the eastern Mediterranean. It was the first time the actual design of the Zircon hypersonic cruise missile was revealed. This comes at a time when its ally Syria is losing ground to the rebels. The military said the number of Russian troops stationed in the region had been increased to take part in the exercises.
Russian Navy frigates equipped with new generation hypersonic cruise missiles conducted drills in the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea earlier this week. The crews of the frigates fired Zircon hypersonic anti-ship missiles, while a Russian submarine launched a Caliber cruise missile, another weapon capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. On the coast nearby, a missile system carried out a live launch of an Onyx anti-ship missile. This was the first time that Russian Defense Ministry revealed the actual design of the Zircon hypersonic cruise missile. Until now, all visuals of the Zircon had been artistic interpretations or educated guesses about its form factor. The design of the nuclear-capable Zircon enhances its operational capability by ensuring it can be launched quickly with advanced propulsion system, likely combining solid rocket boosters for initial acceleration and a scramjet engine for sustained hypersonic speeds. The dual-stage propulsion system gives the Zircon its exceptional range and speed, enabling it to strike distant targets at incredible speed, leaving little time for defense to react. The drills along the coast of Syria came days after Russian jets bombed the rebel-held city of Idlib in northern Syria, to pushing back rebels who had swept through to the city of Aleppo. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has called for a speedy end to the offensive in Syria. The Kremlin says that Russia, Iran and Turkey are working closely towards reaching a solution to the crisis. Russia's envoy to the UN has accused Ukraine of aiding the Syrian rebels and training them for combat operations in the civil war-ravaged country.
Obviously, there was a so-called Ukrainian trace. Given the incoming information about the interaction of the Kyiv's regime's special services with the militants of the terrorist organization Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, including the transfer of drones, experience in their use, and so on. This is not the first and, unfortunately, as we understand, not the last region where the Kyiv terrorist regime will apply its criminal experience. Before this, there were African countries. Now we are talking about Syria.
Ukraine's geographical proximity to Syria has been frequently pointed out. Kiev has hit out at the Assad government in Syria for recognizing Moscow's annexation of the Crimean Peninsula in 2014, claiming that Ukrainians were also being targeted on a nightly basis by Iranian-designed drones. The US, on its part, has said that it would continue to fight Russian and Iranian support to the Syrian regime. The crisis in Syria is not dying down anytime soon.
On the 27th of November, Syrian rebels advanced towards Aleppo, Syria's second largest city. Within 2 days, the insurgents had seized control of Aleppo, forcing the Syrian army to retreat and announce temporary withdrawal. Later that week, the Syrian military lost dozens of soldiers in fighting, marking the first major flare-up in years between both sides. So, who are the rebels battering Syria's Bashar al-Assad regime? And what is the conflict in Syria? Our next report tells you more.
It is March of 2011 and the Arab Spring uprising has reached Syria. Young and old are out on the streets demanding an end to Bashar al-Assad's regime. With the fall of rulers in Tunisia, Libya and Egypt, Syrians are out to seek justice of their own. What no one saw coming was a 14-year-long crisis that followed. Over 300,000 civilians are dead. More than half of Syria's population has been displaced, and geopolitics is at play. This week, a rebel group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham that was confined to the northwest made a surprise attack. They took over 2 cities of Aleppo and Hama to reach closer to the capital, Damascus. Since the start of the war, the power vacuums across the country had let armed groups flourish. The Islamic State gained a foothold in 2014 and established a caliphate, a presence that inflicted violence on minorities. While in control, the IS formed Jabhat al-Nusra, but the faction split a year later and declared its allegiance to Al-Qaeda. In 2017, it severed ties with Al-Qaeda and joined hands with other factions. This is when Jabhat al-Nusra was rebranded as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. It is estimated to have up to 30,000 fighters. The group is largely self-funded and is understood to control a parallel government in the areas it controls. Like the HTS, there are multiple fighting groups, smaller in size. Their ideologies are different, but the goal is the same: to topple the government of Bashar al-Assad. Syria is in a geopolitical war. Foreign backing and open intervention have played a large role. Russia officially entered the conflict in 2015 and has continued to support al-Assad since. Iran and Iraq, as well as Lebanon-based Hezbollah, have all backed the government. Turkey, Saudi Arabia and the United States don't have their boots on the ground, but have supported different opposition factions for different reasons. Turkey, which shares a long border with Syria, is fighting the Kurds. Saudi Arabia has been a key player in supporting the proxy war by supplying local rebel groups with finances and weaponry. The United States started funding the Syrian Democratic Forces under the pretext of fighting the Islamic State. Recently, Israel targeted some Hezbollah strongholds in Syria as an extension of its war at home. At the time of recording this show, this is where things stand. Opposition forces have captured Aleppo in the north and Hama in central Syria. They're advancing towards Homs, which if seized would open the road straight to Damascus. While the national military still holds swaths of majority in the south and west, the situation is changing rapidly in the country. Before this offensive, it was widely believed that the war was over in Syria. But over did not mean peace. There was a lull until there wasn't.
The fragile truce in Lebanon is already on shaky ground. Despite a ceasefire, Israel and Hezbollah forces are exchanging fire again. On Monday, Israeli strikes killed at least 9 people in southern Lebanon. That the Israeli side said was in retaliation for an attack claimed by the militant group earlier. Both sides have since then accused each other of breaking the truce. The question is, will this truce hold? More in our next report.
After nearly 14 months of fighting, last week Israel and Lebanon agreed on a ceasefire deal. This brought tears of joy to the Lebanese, who started running to their homes. The streets were filled with celebrations. Cars gathered at a roundabout in Beirut suburbs near buildings damaged in Israeli strikes on the area, with some carrying personal belongings as people returned to their neighborhoods.
My brother's house was destroyed. My son's house was destroyed. And thank God I came walking to take part in the celebration. Praise God. God protect the resistance. God protect the resistance. Victory for the greatest.
But the happiness was short-lived. Hours after the deal was announced, Israel said its air force struck a facility used by Hezbollah to store mid-range rockets in southern Lebanon. Tel Aviv claimed this was in retaliation to a previous strike by Hezbollah. Following the attack, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he had directed the army to prepare for war if the ceasefire is violated. The Israeli military said it targeted Hezbollah fighters, rocket launchers, and infrastructure. Both sides accused each other of violating the truce brokered by the US and France. Iran-backed Hezbollah has 60 days to remove its fighters and infrastructure from southern Lebanon as part of the agreement. Israeli forces are also expected to retreat to their side of the border in that period. Despite the truce in place, earlier this week, Hezbollah shelled an Israeli military post, while Lebanese authorities said at least 12 people were killed in Israeli strikes on Lebanon. The Israeli military released footage of a strike on what they claim was a Hezbollah launcher in southern Lebanon. The IDF said a launcher that was identified in Mashdal zone in southern Lebanon violated the agreements between Israel and Lebanon and posed a threat to the state of Israel. Despite the ongoing battle between Israel and Hezbollah, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken appeared confident that the truce would last.
The ceasefire is holding, and we're using the mechanism that was established when any concerns have arisen about any alleged or purported violations.
Much now depends on the International Committee, which is meant to verify claims of ceasefire breaches and facilitate communication between the parties.
A year into the war in Gaza, there are no signs of a ceasefire. The humanitarian situation remains dire, and that is an understatement. For the people of Gaza, well, the United Nations has termed it an appalling and apocalyptic situation, which Gazans are barely surviving. Take a look.
Every minute for us is considered a loss of souls, a loss in everything. God is our savior and the disposer of our affairs. People say we are optimistic about the upcoming truce. Our not about President-elect Donald Trump or anything else. It is all claims and lies, as they are only stalling to torture as many of the Palestinian people as possible.
Waking up to the sound of missiles, witnessing the destruction of their homes, this has been the life of Gazans since last year. With no signs of a possible ceasefire, situation in this 360 square kilometer strip is deteriorating rapidly. Bombing of the Al-Mawasi area in Khan Yunis by the Israeli forces has led to massive destruction. Despite the IDF declaring Al-Mawasi a safe humanitarian zone, the area has been repeatedly under fire. With limited resources, Gazans are fighting for basic amenities like food.
Now the ghost of famine is beginning to appear in the southern Gaza Strip. These families can't afford even the low-priced materials and have no source of food except from this charity. Families are relying on the soup kitchen as their only means, as they found their haven in it. Currently we're serving more than 800 families, equivalent to approximately 4,000 people.
Like Al-Mawasi, the situation is tense in Jabalia, Beit Laya and Beit Hanun, where Israeli forces have blown up dozens of houses. Palestinians say Israel's army is trying to drive people out of the northern edge of Gaza with forced evacuations and bombardments to create a buffer zone. But the IDF says it has returned to prevent Hamas fighters from regrouping in the area. The water and sanitation infrastructure in Gaza has collapsed. Over 80% of its medical facilities and much of its roads are either destroyed or severely damaged. There are hundreds of thousands of people living in large tent camps close to the ocean without running water, power, or toilets.
Oh my brother, no one in the world has seen what we saw. I left Abu Tamam school. They did not spare us any quads or missiles. I swear we left. There are people injured and waiting in the schools. There is no one to help them. No ambulance. No one. My children are screaming and shouting, "Mom, where are we going? Mom, where are we going? Why do the Jews do this to us? May God help us. We are tired. I swear we are tired. We lost brothers, relatives, loved ones. No one is looking at us mercifully."
According to the UN, at least 1.9 million people, and that is about 90% of the population across the Gaza Strip, are displaced. And so far, the Israeli onslaught in the Palestinian territory has killed over 44,000. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The world's top arms producers are witnessing revenues rise on the back of wars and regional tensions. This according to Sweden-based think tank Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. The arms revenue of the top 100 arms producing and military services companies totaled $632 billion in 2023, an increase of 4.2% in real terms compared with 2022. 6 of the top 100 arms companies were based in West Asia. Their combined arms revenues grew by 18% to $19.6 billion. With the outbreak of the war in Gaza, the arms revenues of the 3 companies based in Israel in the top 100 reached $13.6 billion. More in our next report. Iran announced the activation of advanced uranium enrichment centrifuge, directly challenging the international community's oversight of its nuclear program. Tehran asserts the steps are in line with its national interests, but the West fears Iran is building a nuclear bomb. This comes ahead of the nuclear talks that Iran held with 3 European countries, and UK's foreign intelligence chief said Iran's nuclear ambitions pose a major global security threat even after setbacks dealt to Hamas and Hezbollah. Here's a report.
Is Iran building a nuclear weapon? The United Nations nuclear watchdog claims Iran is accelerating its nuclear program with plans of installing over 6,000 new centrifuges to enrich uranium. The introduction of gaseous uranium is an essential step to activate the centrifuges, which function by spinning the element rapidly to increase the proportion of the fissile isotope U-235. Iran's top nuclear official, Mohammad Eslami, has said Iran has started inserting gaseous uranium into its newly activated advanced centrifuges. The announcement made last week came a day ahead of the talks that Iran held with Britain, France and Germany in Geneva.
Any interventionist resolution in the nuclear affairs of the Islamic Republic of Iran will certainly be faced with resolute reciprocal actions, and we will not give them permission to use this type of pressure, which they have experienced for years, and realized that we will not succumb to these pressures. And we will continue our program within the framework of our national interests and the Islamic Republic of Iran's national security.
After the talks, the UK, France, Germany and Iran said that the discussion focused on Iran's nuclear program, sanctions and other regional issues. The ministers also agreed to continue diplomatic dialogue. However, UK's foreign intelligence chief claimed that Iran's nuclear ambitions pose a major global security threat, even after setbacks dealt to Hamas and Hezbollah.
DGSE and SIS share reporting insights so that discussions about peace can benefit from a common intelligence picture. Iran's allied militias across the Middle East have suffered serious blows, but the regime's nuclear ambitions continue to threaten all of us, especially friends of France and the UK in the Gulf region.
In an interview to the Guardian newspaper, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned that frustration in Tehran over unmet commitments, such as lifting sanctions, was fueling debate over whether the country should alter its nuclear policy. Araghchi said that Iran possesses both the capability as well as the knowledge to produce nuclear weapons. He also clarified that possessing such weapons are not part of Iran's security strategy. Iran had earlier consented to the UN agency's requirement that its high enriched uranium supply be limited to 60% purity which is far less than 90% weapons grade enriched level required for a bomb. Tehran's nuclear program has already made Western powers anxious. However, Iran has repeatedly denied intentions of pursuing nuclear armaments.
As the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah approaches, a pastry chef in Tel Aviv has curated a donut topped with a yellow ribbon, a symbol of solidarity with October 7th hostages. The yellow ribbon around Israel can be seen on clothes, it's worn like a necklace, but its presence on a pastry has led to wider discourse. Take a look.
There was a lot of negative criticism about the donut with the symbol of the hostages. It was because people thought we wanted to make money out of it. In fact, they don't know we donate part of the proceeds to the hostages' family. And it was also in full coordination with the families of the hostages.
And that is all for this edition of the West Asia Post with me, Kaur Saroya, bringing you the latest from this volatile region. Tune in again next week with a brand new lineup. Till then, keep watching WION, World is One.
Business Masters is an exciting show, I think, because it not only talks about the company's philosophies around how they have grown, but also how individuals have really used their own philosophy to integrate into businesses. I think this is very useful for anyone who's starting a business, who's running a business, or not just entrepreneurs, but even students and professionals who are wanting to get into business.
Pushpa makes a comeback, and we get you everything you need to know about the movie. Dive right into holiday mode with our list of rom-coms. And know rare facts about Britney Spears, aka the Princess of Pop. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanswal, at these times only on WION Club.
Two South African opposition parties asked the country's top court to revive impeachment proceedings against President Cyril Ramaphosa over a scandal where more than $500,000 in cash was stashed in a couch at his ranch and then stolen. Outgoing US President Joe Biden visits Angola, fulfilling a promise made in late 2022 to visit sub-Saharan Africa. It is also Biden's first trip to the continent since becoming president. And designers give new life to second-hand clothing as Ghana's capital drowns in fast fashion waste. That's this week on World of Africa. At these times on WION, World is One.
This week on Check It Out, we show you how London's Heathrow Airport is going the AI way. We also give you a sneak peek into what visitors can expect at the Electric Dreams exhibition and find out how AI is helping amateur tennis players become the next tennis legend. All this and much more on WION World is One at these times.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at WION.com.